Here's a way to do a Drypoint self-portrait. First, I bevel the edges of the copper plate with a power grinder and I finish with a file. Then I polish the plate with steel wool and put a mirror finish on it with a metal polish or even a buffing wheel on a power drill. Then I take my digital snapshot, put that on a computer for a guideline. I needle in the image with my Drypoint needle and I make little changes with burnisher. Sometimes I use an electric engraver. Now my plate is ready to ink with a chip of mat board and I roll the ink out with a brayer. Then I wipe the plate with a page from a telephone book and hand wipe it for a final polish. My paper soaked for an hour. I blot off the surface water, tighten the pressure on my press, put the plate on the bed, the paper on the plate, and run it through, and there's my finished Drypoint. Here's how I make a fine line etching using a liquid hard ground. First I bevel the edge of the copper plate, and then I back it with plastic or a spray paint. I scrub the surface with a cleanser and check it in water to see if water sheets across the surface. Then I blow it dry with a dryer or paper towels and apply the liquid ground with a soft brush. When it's dry, I check it for pinholes. I needle in the design using a sharp etching needle. I immerse it in ferric chloride for 5 or 10 minutes and check it with a magnifier. I remove the ground with a solvent and then I apply the ink with a piece of mat board. Then I wipe with the page from a telephone book and I finish with a hand wipe, and I'm ready to run it through the press and check my proof. Here's how you can do a soft ground etching. You start with a prepared plate with a bevel and a polished surface. I'm using Charbonnel soft black ground in ball form. The ball melts on the plate when you heat it. You roll it out with a soft brayer. When it's cool, you cover it with paper and tape it down and draw. You press hard. You can check your progress. Here's how it looks from the front. Here's the back. It's ready to etch. I stick on plastic buttons because it's going to be etched upside down in ferric chloride for 20 minutes. You can check the depth of the etch with a magnifier. When it's done, dissolve the ground, strip off the backing, apply etching ink, wipe with tarlatan, paper, and finish with a hand wipe. You print on damp paper, and then you pull your proof. Here's how I do a relief print from a woodcut on my mini half-wood press. I started with a design I printed out on my laser printer. Then I transferred the laser print to a block using lacquer thinner and run it through my mini half-wood press. And I start to cut. I use a knife and I cut away from the image at an angle. Then I go back and cut a V shape all around the line areas. And finally I clear out all the open areas with a gouge. I dampen my paper with a spray bottle and put it in a plastic bag. I roll out my ink and I start inking my block. I get the press ready by putting down the chase and a blanket. Then I put my damp paper down into the chase and put my wood block on it face down and roll it through the press. And I lift the block, and there's my finished print. Here's a way to put a laser image on a metal plate and etch it in for making printing plates. Here I'm using it to etch a mini half-wood press medallion. Print on a photo paper and put the design face down on a clean copper or brass plate and then press it with a hot iron. The image will stick. Soak it in hot water. When it's well saturated, the paper will rub off. Rub it until the glossy substance is removed and only the black remains. Cover the back to protect it. A self-adhesive plastic or tape works. Put it in a ferric chloride mordant on its edge or face down. I needed to etch it for 10 or 20 minutes. I put a rough surface in and I use aquatint and I etch it a second time. Finally, I clean it off with a strong solvent with lots of ventilation because this is hazardous to your health. After it's trimmed and polished, I could print it, but this one goes on my mini half-wood press. Here's the design on my computer. I print it on Avery label paper. I tear off the labels and throw them away, and I print on the glossy side that's left using my laser printer set on heavy. I cut out the design I want. Now I've got a copper plate that I scrub with steel wool, and then I polish it, clean it with Comet and water. When it's dry, I put the art face down and run it through a laminator. I do that about 6 times to really get it hot. When it's cooled off, I can peel off the backing, and it's ready to touch up if I need to with rosin alcohol. Coat the back with contact paper, tape it face down with a little space under it in my tray, and put in the ferric chloride. It's a good idea to tap away the bubbles. It takes about 15 minutes for the first bite. I rinse it off with water and really clean. Then when it's dry, I like to put on an aqua tint. I use an aqua tint ox. Just get the fine particles. It only takes about 5 or 6 seconds. Aqua tint has to be fused on with a hot plate. Get it smoking hot. Cool it off and back into the bath. It's all done. Clean it off with lacquer thinner. Be careful, don't breathe those fumes. When it's all clean, it's ready to take your first trial proof. "16 years have passed since I made the last of those videos. I want to add that most of those processes are unsustainable for reasons of lack of resources, high costs, and safety hazards. Also, I want to say that my mini half-wood press that starred in all those videos is still with me in our Seattle museum, and I have migrated away from those processes, what I call the traditional printmaking processes, to 3D printing, which, as it turns out, is the latest of the printmaking techniques. Happily, it comes with the advantage that it's highly useful for kids, and I'm using it myself to make miniature half-wood presses and other designs in plastic, and having a great time. I appreciate your watching. Thank you.